It's a pleasure to be here and to just listen to that amazing presentation. My life has been a life that began in the forest, in the Himalayan forest. But a little booklet by Einstein inspired me to train in physics and quantum theory. And what I learned during my days of doing a PhD in hidden variables and non-locality in quantum theory is that the world is entangled. There is no separation. Everything is connected. You cannot treat what you're observing as separate from you, the observer. The observer and observed are one entangled phenomena. There are no things in the world. And then everything is connected. But ecology also, those frogs and the buffalo, show you all these hidden connections that make the web of life work. For me, biodiversity is the web of life. It's not a number, it's not a thing, it's not an object. It's the relationships between diverse beings. And my first involvement in ecological activism was a movement that started in the Himalayas, where women came out and said, we are going to hug the trees. You'll have to kill us before you kill the trees. The name of the movement was Chipko, which means to hug. I think it should be the slogan for everyone in the world, hugging nature, hugging people, and we will find peace with nature and we will find peace with each other. And they had connected the deforestation with the landslides, with the disappearance of springs, those beautiful oak forests on that pasture. They had songs about the oak, how the leaves give you milk because, they feed the cattle, and the roots give you water. And they saw the ecological connections, the ecological functions of nature. I think 30 years before the scientists woke up to it. Because till that time, it was just, for the scientists, it was just a timber mine. And interestingly, it was the Germans who specialized in what was called scientific forestry, and the British borrowed the Germans to bring them to India to convert natural forests of diversity into commercial forests of timber. I remember a particular day in 1977, women came out with lanterns, and the military was there for protecting forests. The police was there, and they said, you foolish women, can't you see the sun is out? And this is the lanterns are not for the sun, they're for you. Because you're blind, you think these are timber mines. We see them as our mothers. We see them as the sources of our soil, water, and our breath. And those are the ecological functions of the forest. They're the ecological functions of the trees. Women living with the forest as part of the forest could see these connections. But there was another view that saw only a mine for extraction, for profits. And I started to think of, what are these two worldviews that turn the same thing from a living system to a dead timber mine, where the value of the trees comes after you've killed the tree. That's where growth comes. That's where the revenues come, not from nourishing the living tree. And since that time, since the early 70s, I've been engaged in issues of biodiversity, beginning with the forest. But I've also realized that, this mechanistic view of thinking didn't come by accident, and it's not been with us forever. It's a few hundred years old. And it was put in place very consciously. Most people have forgotten there was something called the Inquisition and the witch hunts. It was an essay from Germany called the Hammer of Witches, which triggered the entire papal bull. But the person who was in charge of the witch hunts in England was also the Chancellor of England, also became the father of modern modern science, as he was called, Francis Bacon. He wrote 2 books. One called The Masculine Birth of Time. And saying, I will teach you, come to me, I will teach you how to make nature your slave. And his metaphors of science were the metaphors of torture. I will teach you how to torture nature and extract her secrets. And these connections were so clearly connections that turned the living nature into a dead nature, terra madre into terra nullius. But it was also a disappearance of the intelligence of nature, the beauty of nature, the intelligence and wisdom and knowledge of women. They were extinguished from our thinking about knowledge. And then we treated women as the second sex, nature as dead. That's why, some of us started to think of ecofeminism as a connection between the creativity of the earth and creativity of women, to which a dominant capitalist patriarchal system had become blind. As Evelyn Fox Keller wrote, science has been produced by a particular subset of the human race that is almost entirely by white middle-class males. For the founding fathers of modern science, the reliance on the language of gender was explicit. They sought philosophy that deserved to be called masculine, that could be distinguished from its ineffective predecessors as virile powers, its capacity to bind nature to man's service and make her his slave. And Caroline Merchant, in her book, The Death of Nature, says that this system served perfectly, a system of reductionist mechanistic knowledge, served as a conceptual framework. This mechanical order had associated with it a framework of values based on power, fully compatible with the directions taken by commercial capitalism. Of course, since that time, I've been working with women who have not allowed their knowledge to go extinguished. They have continued to see nature as alive, to see biodiversity as a creative force. And our movement for seed saving, our movement for regenerative organic farming, actually, through care for the earth, through love for the earth, produces more food. The idea that efficiency and productivity have to wipe out nature is such a flawed idea. When the crisis started in India after the Green Revolution, I applied my quantum thinking. I said, they're looking at yield as what is extracted, as a commodity. But it doesn't tell you about the soil, it doesn't tell you about the farmer. I love the end of the last thing. We need to reward the farmers who care, not reward those who are destroying the earth. 75% of the soil water destruction is industrial agriculture based on fossil fuels. 90% of the disappearance of cultivated plant species is based on a monoculture of industrial farming. Wonderful insects, these beautiful beings. If we create tools of war to wipe them out and treat them as an enemy, of course they will disappear. What are insecticides for? To say bye-bye, you don't deserve to be here. They're extinction by design. And we need to see the amazing role they perform, our research at Navdanya, and I have brought a few flyers of the school we have of returning to the earth. 30% of the food we eat comes from the pollinators. 30%. In our arrogance, anthropocentric arrogance, we think we are producers. If non-violent, we can be co-producers. If violent, we are destroying the fabric of the earth. And most people think that going down the same path. For me, innovation is innovation in thinking, not in tools. Tools applied with the same old thinking is, like Einstein said, a clear sign of insanity is doing the same thing again and again, expecting a different outcome. So you can have more accelerated tools for extinction. They're not going to bring your species back. And Buckminster Fuller reminded us, I have evolved knowing that nature's intelligent, that biodiversity has her technologies. Women have their knowledge and their technologies. But because of this masculine project, everyone has been made blind to nature's intelligence and technologies, women's knowledge and technologies, peasant knowledge and technologies. So Fuller writes, in its complexities of design integrity, the universe is technology. The technology evolved by man is thus far amateurish compared to the elegance of non-humanly contrived regeneration. Man does not spontaneously recognize technology other than his own, so he speaks of the rest as something he ignorantly calls nature. The natural is the real technology. And that's where we have to make the big shift. Constantly keeping the mechanistic, reductionist, masculinist project in our minds, just looking for tools to make that project more efficient, will not find the way. I'll just give you a few figures. So of course, colonialism was based on declaring a large part of the world primitive. People like us were primitive. But then all our biodiversity was declared primitive with industrial farming. All our seeds were pushed to extinction, just with the declaration of they're primitive. We're low yielding. No one ever looked, no one ever measured. So I started to measure 1984 onwards, after the Punjab disaster. I saw that the yields of those monoculture farms was nothing compared to the yields of our brilliant systems of 9 crops. That's what Navdanya means. 12 crops growing together, helping each other in symbiosis. We just did a study on our ancient rices. We've saved in Navdanya 4,000 varieties of rices. We did a study with 200 of them. And on the average, compared to the so-called modern varieties, we have 146% more calories. We have 135% more iron. We have 169% more manganese, 80% more zinc. And when you measure biodiversity, rather than monoculture yields, our work has shown that we can feed 2 times the world's population with healthy diets. While we regrow and regenerate biodiversity, we are part of nature. We don't have to destroy it for our interests. We're part of nature, living more fully according to the laws of nature is intelligence. That's brilliance. That's technology. Thank you.